Hi, everybody, and welcome to Señor Hayes' Spanish course, Lección 11. Today's a really important lesson. So, if you remember from a while ago, we had talked about there are three different kinds of verbs: verbs that end in AR, those that end in ER, and verbs that end in IR. All we've ever done so far is conjugate AR verbs. Today, we're going to be looking at the other two, the ER and IR verbs. And we'll be talking about one special IR verb at the very end. Anyway, if you like my videos, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. You can click the link that I'm posting right now and subscribe that way. And so let's get started. All right, so there's three verb categories. I just said that. There's the AR verbs, like trabajar, viajar, hablar. We've learned all those already. Those three. Anyway, that's how we know how to conjugate AR verbs. There's also ER verbs. For example, comer, to eat, aprender, to learn, and correr, to run. So those are three common ER verbs. And then some IR verbs. We've got vivir, to live, abrir, to open, and escribir, to write. All right, so let's look at how you conjugate them. You'll see that these two are very similar to each other, and honestly, it's not that different from the AR verbs. So we'll start with comer, to eat. So it's an ER verb. First person singular, yo como, I eat, yo como. So just like the ARs, we dropped the ending, ER, and for yo we added an O, so that one's not any different. Second person familiar, tú comes, tú comes. So now the ending is ES. With an AR verb, it's AS, like trabajas. Well, with ER verbs, it's ES. Tú comes, you eat. Third person, él come, él come. So we drop the ending, we just add an E for ER verbs. He eats, él come. Okay, let's look at the plural side. First person, nosotros comemos. Nosotros comemos. So the ending is EMOS, amos. Just like it was nosotros trabajamos, we work. Nosotros comemos, we eat. Second person familiar, remember it's only used in Spain. Vosotros comes. Vosotros comes. Third person plural, ellos comen. Ellos comen. So they eat. So you can see it's pretty similar to the AR verbs, really. And then we've got the formals, the usted. So usted come. Again, it conjugates just like a third person. And then plural, ustedes comen. So you all eat. Again, it's just like third person plural. So you can see that the endings are very similar. It's just that where we had an A before, now we have an E. So that's pretty similar. And then now let's take a look here at the IR verbs. The IR verbs are more unique than the ERs. So they're the ones that have the most special rules are about IR verbs. So let's take a look at them. We've got escribir, to write. So let's look at the yo form. Yo escribo. Yo escribo. Again, that's the same. So it's just an O as the ending. Tú escribes. Tú escribes. So here the ending is ES. So you might have thought with AR verbs, the two form ends in AS. ER, it ends in ES. You might have thought with IR verbs it ends in IS, but it doesn't. Actually, the IR endings are pretty similar to the ERs. It's the same in many of the forms. So let's look at the third person singular. Ella escribe. Ella escribe. So we've got an E at the end. So ella escribe. We drop the IR and add an E. All right, let's look at the nosotros form. Nosotros escribimos. Nosotros escribimos. So this one it does have an I, and it is different than ER here. So with AR verbs, it's amos. ER verbs, it's amos. IR verbs, it's imos. Nosotras escribimos. All right, the vosotros. Vosotras escribís. Vosotros escribís. Make sure you're hitting that accent on the last syllable. So you can see there's an accent over the last I. It's not escribís or escribís. It's escribís. Vosotras escribís. And the ellos, ellas, we've got ellas escriben. So here again, we're mirroring the IER verbs. And you can take a look at the usteds. It's the same as the third persons. Usted escribe, ustedes escriben. So you probably noticed that the ER and IR endings are exactly the same, except for the nosotros and the vosotros are different. So it's o, e, no, perdón, sorry. O, es, e, hemos, eis, en for the ERs, and the IRs are o, es, e, imos, is, en. Very similar. Okay, well, now that we know how to conjugate the verbs, let's look at some useful verbs. So we've got some ERs and some IRs. I just included 8 here. So let's start with the top here. Aprender, to learn. I mentioned that before. You can repeat the verb after I say it. Aprender. Beber. That means to drink. So, bebo agua. I drink water. Comer, to eat. We just learned that one. Comer. Comprender. Comprender. That's to understand. Comprender. Correr. Correr. That's to run. It's a pretty common verb. Make sure you're rolling your R's there, or if you can try to work on that. Correr. Let's see. Here we've got creer. Creer means to believe. And then we have there in, if it's believe in. Creer. And leer. Leer means to read. So the two E's together, all the vowels still keep their sounds the same. You just kind of say it a little bit longer. So for example, if a word was L-E-R, which isn't a word, but if it was just L-E-R, we'd say leer. And L-E-E-R is leer. All right, let's look at some IR verbs. Abrir, to open. Abrir. Asistir a, to attend. So that might look like the word in English assist. It doesn't mean to assist. It means to attend. So you can assist a class, asistir a la clase. So make sure that if you're attending something, you put that word a in there. It doesn't really mean anything in Spanish. It just it gets included sometimes. So just be aware of that. You'll see the word a lot. We can say it means to. So attend to the class or something. So yeah, it's asistir. And then it's usually followed by the word a. Compartir. Compartir is to share. So, you share your toys. Compartes tus juguetes. So it's to share. Decidir. Decidir is to decide. It's pretty easy. Escribir. We talked about that one. Means to write. Maybe you've heard a word like a scribe, like an ancient Egyptian scribe would write. Or an inscription is writing. So escribir is to write. Recibir. Recibir is to receive. That's pretty similar to English. And vivir. Vivir. I mentioned at the beginning, it's to live. So maybe you've heard like Viva Mexico or things like that. That's to live. Long live Mexico. So. Okay, we're going to do some practice here. So, if you need to go back and rewatch those just to kind of memorize the vocab, then, feel free to do that. Right now, we're just going to do some practica. So you can just tell me the verb that goes in there. So you have to think of the right verb. They're all ones that we've just talked about. And then also you need to conjugate it too. So we have los leones, which hopefully you can figure means the lions. We have blank, las bocas, which we've talked about the word boca once before a while ago. It means mouth. So los leones, blank, las bocas. So what verb goes in there? Do you know? So they're opening their mouths, right? Abrir is to open. So we need to conjugate that to the ellos form. Los leones abren las bocas. The lions are opening their mouths. So one thing, I'll just take a moment here to point out that in Spanish, they use the perfect tense, the present tense, in a way that we would oftentimes use the ing form of things. So if we say, lions open their mouths, that's just a general fact. If we want to talk about the lions right now, then we say they are opening their mouths. So in Spanish, you can just say, los leones abren las bocas. Lions open their mouths. And it means they are opening them right now. So we use ing a lot more than they do. They'll just use present tense. Okay, so now we have two people. They're speaking. They're saying nosotros. What? What are they doing? Escribimos. They're writing. So we are writing, or we write. Nosotros escribimos. Okay, so we have our little boy talking to a couple here. And he says, ¿Es que vosotros blank en Dios? Now you may know the word Dios means God. So what verb are we going to be talking about here? ¿Es que vosotros blank en Dios? So he's asking them if they believe in God, right? So how are you going to say believe and then conjugate it? Well, believe is creer. So we're going to conjugate that to the vosotros form. Creéis. Creéis. ¿Es que vosotros creéis en Dios? Remember, that's just used in Spain. And then they're going to answer, sí, blank, en Dios. They look like they believe in God. They're holding a crucifix here. So what are they going to say? They're going to say creer, but they're going to conjugate it to the we form. Creemos. Creemos. You see how the two E's, they make the same sound, but it's just a little bit longer. It's not creemos, it's creemos. Creemos. Okay, so now we're talking about this lady here. La mujer, blank, el libro. So what's she doing? She's reading, which is leer. So to conjugate that into the she form, lee. La mujer lee el libro. So again, I'll point out the same sound. So for example, le, that's a very common word in Spanish. It just means le. But if it's she reads, lee, we say lee. La mujer lee el libro. So you just kind of draw out the sound. Ella blank el libro porque es muy inteligente. So she's blank the book because she's very smart. So she's reading it and understanding it because she's very smart. So how do we say she understands? Do you remember that one? Understand is comprender. Comprender. So to conjugate that, ella comprende. Ella comprende el libro porque es muy inteligente. She understands the book because she's very smart. Okay, so we've got our young kid talking here. And he says, ¿Es que vosotros blank la cama? I don't think I've ever used that word cama before. It means bed. So what verb do you think goes there? ¿Es que vosotros la cama? Well, they're sharing the bed. So he's asking them if they share the bed. Do you remember how to say to share? It's compartir. Compartir. And to conjugate that into the vosotros form, compartís. Compartís. Make sure you have that accent in the last. Compartís. Es que vosotros compartís la cama? And they say, sí, blank la cama. So, how do you think that is in the nosotros form? Compartimos. Compartimos. Sí, compartimos la cama. Yes, we share the bed. Okay, now let's take some time here to talk about the verb ear. So it's an IR verb. It's just ear. It's IR. It's a really common and important verb. So it's technically an IR verb because it is just IR. It doesn't really have a stem. It's just ear, but it's very irregular. It means to go or to be going. So as I mentioned before, the Spanish don't always make a distinction there. Ear can mean to go or it can mean to be going. For example, Juan va a la biblioteca. Juan is going to the library. Juan va a la biblioteca los lunes. He goes to the library on Mondays. So in English, we would use different tenses for that. He's going there now, or he goes there on Mondays. In Spanish, you would just say va. You'd use the same word in both. Juan va a la biblioteca. Juan va a la biblioteca los lunes. And it's very often followed by the Spanish word a, which I mentioned that word before. It doesn't always mean something. A lot of times it means to, but oftentimes it just has no meaning. But the word ear is followed by a very often. So let's look at how you conjugate this. So you are going to need to know all of these. I think probably you've heard most, if not all of them, but we'll go over them. So, yo voy. I go. I'm going. Yo voy. Tú vas. Tú vas. Él va. He's going. He goes. Él va. Nosotros vamos. Nosotros vamos. I'm almost sure you've heard that word vamos. It's pretty common. Vosotros vais. Vosotros vais. And ellos van. Ellos van. And again, the ustedes forms. Usted va, just like él va. And ustedes van, just like ellos van. So those are your conjugations of ir. Voy, vas, va, vamos, vais, van. So go ahead and repeat that after me. Voy, vas, va, vamos, vais, van. Voy, vas, va, vamos, vais, van. Voy, vas, va, vamos, vais, van. So say that to yourself. It really helps. It just kind of gets you into the swing of saying those words. They're extremely common and important words in Spanish. Voy, vas, va, vamos, vais, van. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the verb. It's an extremely common and versatile verb. So use it all the time and in a lot of different situations. It expresses movement, like go. Juan is going to the park. Juan va al parque. It expresses future actions. So this is the same in English. Juan is going to eat an apple. Juan va a comer una manzana. So he's going to eat an apple. Juan va a comer una manzana. Notice that after va, we have the word a, and then you put the infinitive there. So you don't conjugate the second verb, which is going to eat. To eat is comer. You're not going to say Juan va a come or something like that. That would mean Juan is going, he eats. Or it doesn't make any sense. You have to leave the second verb in its infinitive form. We'll talk about this much, much more and get a lot of practice on that. It's very, very common and important. But just be aware of it for now, that you'll say va a and then the infinitive. I'm going to eat. Voy a comer. You're going to eat. Vas a comer. He's going to eat. Va a comer. We're going to eat. Vamos a comer. So you leave the second verb the same. You only conjugate one of the verbs. It can be used as a first person command. So let's eat. Vamos a comer. So it literally means we're going to eat, but it's used like a command. So you can say let's eat. Vamos a comer. Vamos a bailar. Let's dance. So it's pretty common. Okay, so let's try conjugating the verb ir. So here we got a little boy again. He's talking to the frog. He's saying, "Adonde?" blank rana. Rana means frog. So he's asking him, where he's going. So how would he say that? Vas. ¿Adonde vas, rana? So where are you going, frog? I guess he also could say va. If you think they have a formal relationship, he could be using the usted form, but he is calling him Rana by his name, so I think that it's probably would use to. And so the frog answers, blank, a Barcelona. So he's going to Barcelona. There's La Sagrada Familia church in the background. It's a very famous and beautiful church that's not quite finished in Barcelona. So how do you say I'm going? Voy. Voy a Barcelona. I'm going to Barcelona. Okay, so now we have Es que el gato blank el ratón. So we have the cat, gato, mouse is a ratón, and we have he's going to eat. So how would we conjugate that? Going to eat. So is it that the cat's going to eat the mouse? Is he going to eat the mouse? How would you conjugate ir a comer? Va a comer. Remember the second verb stays the same and we conjugate ir. So the cat is singular and third person, so it's va. Es que el gato va a comer al ratón? Is the cat going to eat the mouse? And the answer I just said, no creo. Creo que son amigos. So creo, remember we just learned that verb creer, to believe. So I don't believe. I don't think so. No creo. No creo. It's really common, so I don't think so. No creo. I don't believe so. I don't think so. Creo que son amigos. I think they're friends. I believe they're friends. Creo que son amigos. Okay, so now we've got our boy again. He's talking to that same couple. He says, ¿Qué blank hacer hoy? So we have what blank to do today. Hoy is today. Hacer is to do. So he's asking him, what are you going to do today? It's plural, so how would he say you plural? ¿Qué vais? ¿Qué vais a hacer hoy? ¿Qué vais a hacer hoy? In Latin America, he'd be saying van. ¿Qué van a hacer hoy? Using the aesthetics form. But in Spain, he'd say, ¿Qué vais a hacer hoy? What are you going to do today? ¿Qué vais? What are you going? A hacer, to do. Hoy is today. ¿Qué vais a hacer hoy? And they say, hoy, today, blank, a ir a la iglesia. So, to go to the church, iglesia is church. So we'd say, vamos. Hoy vamos a ir a la iglesia. We are going to go to the church. Vamos a ir a la iglesia. So remember, you only conjugate the first one. Vamos a ir. The second one you leave the same, to go. Alright, so he's asking, now he's talking to the frogs again. He says, ¿A dónde blank ustedes? ¿A dónde blank ustedes? So we know that he's addressing them as ustedes. So either it's formal or he's in Latin America. And so how would he say, where are you going? Well, you go in the ustedes form is van. ¿A dónde van ustedes? ¿A dónde van ustedes? And the frogs respond, blank, a París. A París. So we're going to Paris. So how do you say we're going? Vamos. Vamos a París. Vamos a París. Okay, so here I've just got a little exercise here. It says, ¿Qué es un pulpo? So pulpo is a word that you may not know. We're going to talk about it and then see if you can figure out what it means. And then at the end, we'll tell you, of course. So let's start with here. So I've got boxes over the verbs, and I've got the infinitive there. I want you to conjugate it for me. So we're going to start with conjugating ir. It says, hablar del pulpo. So blank, talk about the pulpo. So what would you say there? Vamos. Vamos a hablar del pulpo. So let's talk about the pulpo. El pulpo, blank, un animal. So hopefully you can see that means animal. So we're using a verb of ser, a form of ser. So this isn't one that we just learned, but it's one that we've learned before. So how do you conjugate ser in the third person? Es. El pulpo es un animal. The pulpo is an animal. El pulpo, vivir en el mar. So you got to conjugate vivir. So again, we're talking third person singular here. So, which by the way, if you don't know, mar means the sea. El mar is the sea. So like marine animals live in the sea. El mar. So he lives in the sea. And say he lives, vive. El pulpo vive en el mar. He lives in the sea. Los pulpos, blank, peces y almejas. A pez is a fish, and an almeja is a clam. So he eats, or they eat, sorry, there should be an S there. Los pulpos, plural, comer peces y almejas. So the pulpos, how do you say they eat? Comen peces y almejas. Los pulpos comen peces y almejas. Okay, here we've got los pulpos aprender muchas cosas. So they learn a lot of things. So they learn, do you remember? Aprenden. Los pulpos aprenden muchas cosas porque blank muy inteligentes. Because they are very smart. So how do you say they are? Whenever we had he is was es, and they are, hopefully you remember, is son. Los pulpos aprenden muchas cosas porque son muy inteligentes. The pulpos learn many things because they're very smart. Notice that we've also made sure that, since we're talking about the pulpos, plural, that we put an S at the end of intelligent. Inteligentes. We have to make sure that it agrees with the noun that is modifying. Inteligentes modifies pulpos, which is plural, so we have a plural form of the adjective. And the last one here, tener. So we're conjugating tener. Remember, it's a little bit irregular, but we've learned how to do it before. So the pulpo, blank, ocho brazos. Brazo is an arm. So he has 8 arms. El pulpo tiene 8 brazos. ¿Qué es un pulpo? There we go. That's a pulpo. So you probably figured it out. If not earlier, at least when I said that he had 8 arms. So yeah, that's octopus is a pulpo. So, all right. Hasta luego. Thanks for listening. If you liked the video, you can click like and you can subscribe to my channel here. I'll go ahead and put up a link for you if you want to subscribe. But yeah, so those are some really important information that you can use for conjugating other kinds of verbs. So now we've really kind of busted wide open the kind of verbs we can use. We're going to be building on that in the future. And so this is a pretty complex and important video. I mean, I do recommend watching it a second time if you have a chance, if you don't understand everything really well, because you have to know that information in order to speak Spanish. So, all right, thanks for watching. Have a great day. See ya.